This week on Under NDA.
A lot of my favorite moments in my dance career are those moments when I was in the corps de ballet and I was able to sort of joke around with the other dancers and someone would sneeze or, when it was supposed to be very quiet or someone would, fart when they jump or something. And I
Does
mean,
that
those are
actually
just,
happen? Does that actually happen?
yes, it really happens.
Nobody can imagine like this. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Under NDA, where we continue our discussions of the secret world of ballet. And this week, we are joined by Jared, a storied career in ballet across the world. Jared, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jared and danced professionally for about 16 years, but have danced pretty much my whole life from 7 years on. I traveled the country and danced in many different dance companies and schools, mostly because I just was kind of antsy and didn't really want to sit in the same place like a lot of dancers do. So I kind of moved around a little bit. But yeah, now I'm retired and raising a family and, living a very normal life.
Sounds fascinating. So question for you, is it common for people to move around? Like, what is like the average tenure that you would have typically at a ballet company as a professional?
That's a good question. There's levels in dance companies. There's the school, then there's trainees, then there's apprentices, then there's a corps de ballet, then there's soloists, and then there's principals. And the ideal career is to go all the way through all of those levels. So there are some people that start at a school at 5 or 6 years old and end up being a principal dancer for that company. That's pretty rare. But I would guess probably the average tenure at a company would be maybe in the early part of your career, 3 to 5 years. And then once you kind of settle, you're in that company for the rest of your professional career. So probably more like 10 years.
Gotcha. So it's actually interesting because in the corporate world, and Woody, and we've experienced this together, to advance is often to leave, right? So the idea to actually increase your responsibilities and leveling, oftentimes the option available to you is to find somewhere else in which to pursue that. Is that pretty common in the world of ballet, or is it that there is sort of an inherent value placed on your dedication and your commitment to that company?
It has more to do with the director of the company. So and how the director likes you and how you like the director. So it really, if you're in the middle of your career and suddenly there's a artistic directorship change, it can be really devastating. Or it could be, a really great thing. If the current artistic director wasn't a huge fan of you and you're dancing and you're performing, leaves, and then a new one comes and they really like you, then it could be really good. So I guess it's not unlike the corporate world where, if your boss doesn't like you or, you don't get along with someone, then the only way to move up is really to move on and go somewhere else. But that a lot like in the corporate world, you have to go and audition, aka, I guess, / interview. And that's always so much pressure. There's so much judgment in dance on your body, on how tall you are, on how thin you are, on, how you look on stage, how you look in photographs. So it's kind of, it's different from the corporate world in that sense, but it definitely has a lot more to do with your directors.
Do dancers move companies with directors often, or directors, do they have, people that they enjoy working with that they bring with them?
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of that? Yeah.
Yeah, that does happen. It doesn't typically happen right away. Usually a director comes in and if they're not truthfully doing this, they're at least telling everyone that they're going to work with the current dancers and, they're going to be really great with the board there. And then slowly but surely, the director will bring in. I've seen directors bring in their wives as principal ballerinas, or, people that they've worked with for years. So yeah, it's very incestuous like that. Very incestuous. Okay. Yeah.
What, you must, so 16 years professional. How many more other years just in the dance world? You must have seen a lot of really just pretty interesting stuff, I imagine. Stepping back though, I'd be really interested to hear, because you started so young. Tell us like some of the most kind of lighthearted stories from your career. I think interesting to hear sort of the fun side and not just always the serious side of ballet.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you're so involved in your company and in the people you're working with that oftentimes, at least for me, when I was performing, it was less about being there for the audience and more about being there for my colleagues. Especially once, if you're in the corps de ballet, which means you're kind of in the background dancing in larger groups, it's very much about your friendships. It's very much about, you're moving around and kind of giggling and laughing, and you have inside jokes, or you're giving each other certain looks, and at times you're even laughing. So I think a lot of my favorite moments in my dance career are those moments when I was in the corps de ballet and I was able to sort of joke around with the other dancers, and someone would sneeze, or, when it was supposed to be very quiet, or someone would, fart when they jump or something. And
That actually happened.
Yes, it really happens.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And of course, usually you can't hear it in the theater because the music is so loud. But when you're behind someone that's jumping and that happens, you can tell right away. But gosh, what are some of the other lighthearted things? It's such hard work, and it's so all consuming. It affects the way you sleep. It affects what you eat. It affects how much you drink. If you're hydrated, it affects everything. And so I kind of feel like you're like at war or something, and you have these colleagues that are like your best friends, and sometimes your worst enemies because they're your competition as well. And so it's just it's such a cool environment to be in, and I don't think people realize it's happening when you're in the audience and you see people on stage dancing. You don't think about their sort of interpersonal relationships, but when you're there doing it, it really, for me, it was all about that for sure.
Is there a point when you were growing up in your dancing career where you kind of felt more of that shift happen, where it went from being kind of, I don't know, fun? I mean, hopefully it was always fun, but, where it became a little bit more disciplined, where it became a little bit more regimented, where it felt more of like that, more of that kind of structured regiment versus, well, I'm just here to dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, certainly when you're fresh out of school, it is serious hardcore because you're trying to prove yourself. You feel like you have to hit every single spot, and you have to do all the choreography perfectly. And of course that ends up happening, and then it sort of becomes second nature. You really get into the groove of rehearsing and understanding where you need to be. And so it's really hardcore in the beginning, and then sort of in the middle of your career when you're sort of in the corps de ballet and climbing the ranks of the companies, not so much. It's really lighthearted and fun. You work hard, but you have some fun. And then you become a soloist and a principal, and you're out there dancing alone in front of 2,500 people, and you're wearing nothing but boxer briefs or white tights. It's pretty intense. Everyone can see when something is messed up. And that's the thing I always thought was interesting about ballet, is that a complete novice could come off the street and watch a ballet. And if someone screws up or F's up royally, or even slightly, they can pretty much tell, just as much as the artistic director would be able to tell. So it's one of those art forms there's so much pressure because one thing could go wrong and, everyone will know it. But then also as you grow through the career, you sort of learn how to, I guess, hide those things, unless you fall on your face or unless you're bleeding through your tights, which happened to me a lot. If you do a jump to the knee or something. But yeah, the pressure is there. It is high stakes.
You're probably not laughing a lot of that off, right? You do something.
Definitely not.
And it's like, oh, Jared, next time, Jared.
Yeah. Usually the director is sitting right there in the wings and is like, hey, You only did 4 pirouettes. Let's try for 5 next time. There's always an improvement that can be done. And you're constantly reminded of it. Yeah, you don't get to laugh about it until you're at home or at the bar with your friends after the show is when you really start to laugh about it.
So in the world of the pressure, when the pressure takes over, was there ever a situation where, I don't know, you forgot or you had stage fright or like something happened to you on stage as you were, out of the court of ballet, like you're kind of there maybe with a partner or something. Is there anything kind of crazy that happened to you?
Oh yeah, that is a dancer's worst nightmare, especially when you're out there alone or you're with a partner. For me, it was muscle memory. Like, people often ask, like, how do dancers remember all their steps? How do dancers remember how to do all those millions of things that you're doing constantly while you're in a show? And for me, it was muscle memory. You rehearse so much, and a lot of it is from the vocabulary of class. So you sort of figure it out. But it's the dancer's worst nightmare. There was one time I forgot the choreography completely, and it was so awful. I had I was a principal at the time, and I had a fairly new partner to the company. She was Japanese and really methodical and always like spot on, and she did really great work. And one time during the Nutcracker, I think she did something different than she normally does. She had to have, because I literally had a complete blank mind. I had no idea what to do. And it was in the middle of the pas de deux, which is partnering. So at any moment, she could jump or go into a big, dip or something where I'm supposed to support her. And I had no idea. And there was a quiet moment in the pas de deux, and she did this piqué arabesque in front of me, which sort of covers me up. And I said to her, Shigemi, what's next? Shigemi. Her name was Shigemi. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't think she would mind. I was like, what's next? And she was, first of all, confused that I was talking to her, because that doesn't normally happen. Sometimes it does. But I will never forget, she was in front of me and she kind of turned around and looked at me and gave this funny noise. She was like, oh, like, like, why are you talking to me and you don't know what's next? How am I supposed to tell you? Like, I got this communication from her, and I'll never forget that sound. The like, oh. And somehow, by the grace of who knows, God, I guess, remembered like 8 counts later. But there are times when dancers completely forget, and that is such a scary, scary moment. It's insane. It's insane. Awful.
So sort of, there was any other sort of like just kind of funny anecdotes before we get into a few kind of more serious questions? Anything other silly things that have happened to you that are of note?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of silly things happened to me. One time this doesn't have to do with me dancing, but I was choreographing a show. It was a musical. I was asked to choreograph a musical that I ended up really enjoying, and it was such a cool experience, and I was super proud of myself, and I was really into it. And I did some musical theater when I was younger, so it kind of was stepping back into that world, which was awesome. It was Tech Week. It was our first day on stage. And during Tech Week, dancers kind of you mark the show. You sort of like, because the sets are there and the lighting's there and costumes there, you sort of go through the show slowly and kind of without music. So you're marking it. And as the choreographer, you're usually standing right in front. And I was standing right in front, and I was trying to get a better view. And I was at center stage, and I was walking backward to get that better view, and suddenly I fell 15 feet into the orchestra pit. It was as scary as it was. Looking back on it, it's hilarious. Like, why did I not even think? I've been on stage a million times and seen the pit a million times, but for some reason it totally slipped my mind, and I fell right into the orchestra pit. Broke my arm. They were setting up the orchestra, so there were music stands everywhere. It could have been really, really, really dangerous, but luckily I landed pretty safely. That's a pretty crazy story. Another thing that's kind of fun, I was on tour in Korea with a company from the States, and the stage was huge. It's the biggest stage I think I ever danced on. And there was a section in this ballet that I was running that I had to do this big sweep across the stage. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to run really far. And I ran. And it was like, it felt like the best moment of my life, and I totally missed the next couple steps because I ran too far because I had all that space. Like there's just weird stuff like that happens all the time. Just funny little random things.
How many people would you say fall off the stage in a given year? I mean, it's like I've done it. Dorian, have you fallen off a stage?
I unfortunately can say that I have not, Woody.
Oh, okay.
Have you really, Woody?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I was in theater for like 5 years growing up, and same thing. You know, they turn off the lights, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got plenty of space, and you just fall
right off.
Yeah.
I bet you it happens a lot more than we think. In fact, there used to be sort of a joke that if you fall into the pit, you're part of a very exclusive club.
Yeah.
You know, someone that's very serious about your work that you don't even realize the pit is there. But I tell you, after I fell into it, for the rest of my career, and even still, whenever I'm near a pit, I get major anxiety. It freaks me out.
Do you like the idea of framing something that is just so ridiculous as a positive? There you go. If you fall in the pit, you're special.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
One of the things I'm really interested in, so we hear a lot of chatter that in the ballet world, one is very competitive, but that also there's a lot of like just challenging sort of behaviors to sort of power through. Maybe it's a little bit, I mean, eating is one. I know this sounds very totally stereotypical, sorry, but people always talk about like eating and what do ballet dancers eat and what does that look like? And are they hangry all the time? Is it a stereotype or is that actually like, is that a real thing? Like, is it kind of a quest for starvation?
No, it's a real thing. It's a definite real thing. And I think a lot of people shy away from talking about it, but it is definitely a thing. So much of your success in your career has to do with your ability to sort of be this amazing athlete on next to no calories in your body, next to nothing. So there's really odd behaviors and some crazy things. I remember when I was in school and I went to a summer program at Boston Ballet, one of the main principal ballerinas was so anorexic. She actually passed away. She actually died. And the artistic director got fired. And that artistic director, her career was pretty much ruined after that. But it's a real thing, and it's kind of funny and lighthearted when you're in it because you're all sort of in it together again. It's like one of those things where you're just like at war together and you're in the bunkers and starving to death. But I had some friends that told me that they would dip cotton balls in lemon juice and eat it. That's what they would eat, which I just didn't even understand, and I'm not sure I believe that was a thing, but it is definitely a thing. I had colleagues that would just eat spinach all day. And, we, in between ballets or rehearsals, I would look over and they had, a bag of spinach from the grocery store and that's what they were eating. It's a real thing. And there's also a thing called the fat talk that no one ever wants to get, the fat talk. And it's when the artistic director or the ballet mistress or master comes up to you privately, pulls you aside. Usually it's in front of your colleagues. They pull you aside so your colleagues see that you're being pulled aside. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the pressure. And you're told that you are too big and that you need to lose weight. And so clearly there's no HR company. There's no HR departments in ballet companies. And if there are, they're very different than in the corporate world because anyone would be in so much trouble if, they, went to a regular employee and did that. But I had the fat talk once. It was not pleasant. It was toward the end of my career. We were doing a ballet where the men had their shirts off. And randomly, the artistic director came in to watch the rehearsal, which she didn't normally do. And she picked people from different casts to do that rehearsal. So casts that we weren't normally with. And I was picked to be in that cast, that random rehearsal. And I couldn't help but notice it was kind of the larger dancers in the company. And unfortunately, I was lumped into that. And the artistic director made us take our shirts off, even though that's not necessarily typical in the dance studio. Yes, if that's your costume, you eventually do. But in the dance studio, they don't usually make you do that. She made us do that. And then it was very clear that she pulled each one of us aside after that rehearsal and told each of us that we needed to lose weight. Luckily, she only told me I needed to lose like 5 pounds, which was manageable. But It's not. It's crazy. It's a real thing, and I have to say, I'm always shocked watching prima ballerinas, especially the women, have to stay so thin. I'm always shocked, even when I watch ballet now, to see them doing all the things that they're doing and being as strong as they are, starving to death. And it really is sort of starving. Certainly not to death with everyone, but yeah, it's a big thing. And I think there's been a bit of a transition in the dance world where they're trying to not make it like that. But if you still look at the best dancers in the world, they're generally quite thin. Just part of the territory, I guess.
So as a dancer, the 16 years we know, as with any art form, the money does not follow the art, right? It's like
True.
it is a you were giving yourself into the art at the kind of sort of acknowledgement that like financially you're not going to be in great shape, but you do it because you love it.
Yeah,
What is
for sure.
what is, like when you think about like how that sort of had impacted you? Like what is like some stories about just getting by, like.
There's a lot of them. I mean, luckily you're not supposed to eat much. So when you're really poor and you can't afford a lot of food, it works out in your favor in the ballet world. um, some of the other things, I mean, just getting by, I do have to say dancers, at least when I was dancing and my friends, we were all pretty cheap drunks. So that was easy to go to the bar and have one martini and you were fine for the rest of the night. You were happy and slightly buzzed the rest of the night. Yeah, dancers, they're amazing. They really make so many sacrifices in their lives, and not making money is definitely one of them. You have this prestigious career, and you walk out on stage, and you have to act like royalty, and you look like royalty, and you're wearing all these beautiful clothes, and then you go and put your ratty jeans on, and go to your apartment where you have 6 roommates, and you don't have a car because you can't afford it. I mean, it's a tough life. It's definitely something you do when you have to love it. You really, really have to love it. And so, especially now as a parent, I understand why a lot of parents are like, kind of discouraging their kids to become professionals because it's not an easy life. It's definitely trying, but the rewards are there and it's so much fun. And, I traveled the world and I met dignitaries and I danced in stages, some of the oldest, most beautiful theaters, and made so many great friends. It's a really cool life if you can manage to, first of all, get there. And then second of all, if you're able to kind of stay there and enjoy the fruits of all your labor from studying and sacrificing for all those years. It's quite a challenge.
So when dancers, how many years would you say is like a typical career of a dancer once they're part of a,
It depends. If you're injury prone, if your body can't hold up to it, certainly much shorter. I think if you're a female and you become a principal, that means your body can handle it. And generally, female principals can last a really long time, unless they have some weird, freaky injury. Men, so I think women typically, if they're successful and they've worked hard and they're at that point, they probably last until their late 30s, maybe into their early 40s. And the men probably, depending on their bodies, and men do a lot of lifting and jumping, so their backs are just really tore up and can really be a problem. Men typically retire probably around 35, just because it's so demanding. And as men, our bodies change so quickly as we mature. It's harder and harder to stay thin for most of us, but especially, even for dancers at age 30, 35, the men, it becomes pretty difficult.
And do you find that most dancers stay pretty close to theater companies, et cetera, or do they kind of, is there
after their careers?
Pretty diverse. Yeah. After their careers.
There's some cool resources out there. There used to be a nonprofit called Career Transitions for Dancers. And they give you scholarships to go to school while you're dancing. They give you career advice. They give you career counseling. I mean, I think most people probably assume that a dancer goes on to be a choreographer or a director or a teacher. And that's pretty rare. That's actually quite rare. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of people in the corps de ballet, and then it just gets narrower and narrower. So there's not that many artistic director jobs and even dance related jobs. So I mean, I've had friends that retired that became physical therapists, and I've had friends that have retired and they teach at Dolly Dinkle School in their little hometown. It ranges quite a bit. I think it ends up being what you maybe would have done before you became a dancer. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a pretty wide range of things that people go on to do after they're done dancing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How was it for you? In particular, when you retired, like, because I imagine you're doing this for so long. This is your life. It's like you're eating, not really eating. You're breathing.
Yeah.
How is it for you? And then also when you look around, I have two questions. Is it generally sort of a challenge to retire, given that, again, you said you're on stages of 2,500 people in the audience? It's got to be a big change. But then I think the other question is, like, when you look back, do you regret that you did it? Right? When you look at when you reflect.
Yeah, it's a tough transition. I mean, I think if anyone totally changed gears and switched careers in their mid 30s or their early 40s, it would be tough, and it's not easy. For me, it was okay. I certainly struggled. And when your job is to work out, we all know that when you work out, it affects your mental health as well. So suddenly you're working out far less. You go from working out 6-8 hours a day to, maybe a half hour in the gym or an hour in the gym. So mental health is a real problem for retired dancers. And also just general direction, like, what do you do next? And if you weren't fortunate enough to go to university or have some sort of backup career, it's not an easy transition. And you're right, Dorian, like, I went from, like you said, I would dance on stage alone in front of 2,500 people, and I'm certainly not like tooting my own horn here, but they would applaud when I walked out on stage because the audience knew who I was. And then you retire and you feel like no one knows who you are, and it's really strange. And you don't realize how much of your personal identity is attached to that, I guess. Because, man, it's tough. It's tough to think you are somebody and then suddenly you're not. Whether you were or not, I don't know. But and as far as regrets, I don't have any regrets. For me, it was sort of an escape from my childhood, my life. It gave me stability and it gave me strength, and it was my ticket out of town. So it was not, for me, I don't regret it. I met amazing friends. I even met my partner through it because I was auditioning, and I don't regret it at all. It was some of the best memories I've had in my whole life, and I'm sure that they will always be that way.
Well, Jared, this perfect way to end this discussion. Thank you so much for insight into the world of ballet. I think there's so many questions that people have, and I think it's just wonderful to hear your experience, dispel some rumors, confirm some others. Thank you so much for spending the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And that is of this episode of Under NDA. So thank you so much, Jared.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Tune in weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you like to find your podcasts. If you have a story you'd like to share or you'd like to join us on the show as a guest, visit underndapodcast.com and drop us a line. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.